So our next session can rightfully be called a Mythbusters episode. Ekene S from Netlify will disprove all the misconceptions about JAMstack and tell you how to JAMstack in the dynamic era. Please welcome Ekene on stage.
Hello and welcome to my session. The JAMstack way of building the web has evolved a lot and is capable of doing incredibly powerful things. However, we keep hearing things that suggest that the JAMstack is just for static sites. That's what I intend to clear up in this session. My name is Ekene Eze. I'm a developer experience engineer at Netlify, and you can find me on Twitter at Kenny_IO. So let's take a look at my agenda for today. So we'll start off with an understanding of what the JAMstack is and also take a look at some guiding principles that defines a JAMstack site. Next, we'll look at a few benefits of the JAMstack just to shine some light on the different ways building on the JAMstack can help you and your team, and also by extension, your business. We will then look at some common misconceptions about the JAMstack. Of course, there are some. Then, after that, we'll walk through a practical implementation of a JAMstack application with dynamic functionalities that should just help us show you how much you can do on the JAMstack. And finally, we'll take a look at some thoughtful takeaways that I have prepared for you in this session. And that's it. Let's get started. What is the JAMstack? So a lot of people define JAMstack in a lot of different ways. That at some point, it seems like everyone has a different version of what the JAMstack is to them. And that is totally fine, or at least I think it is. But we want people to have the right idea of what the JAMstack is, to at least understand the fundamentals of a JAMstack site before then tailoring it down to suit their respective needs. So JAMstack is a way of thinking about how to build the web, where the UI is compiled, the front end is decoupled from every other service, and the data is pulled in as it is needed, right? So personally, I like to think of it as a way of building an app or a site where my UI is kept separate from other parts of the application. So I have a data source somewhere like in Strapi that I can get more data from whenever I need to. And seeing how that can still be a little bit unclear to others, we've come up with some guiding principles that helps us and also helps you understand the architecture of a JAMstack site. And the first one of those principles is that you should decouple the UI. I already mentioned this in my earlier definition, but this is a very important part of what makes a JAMstack site. So keeping your front end separate from your backend services and databases means that we can deploy your front end to a global CDN, which then serves them directly to your users without any problems. This way, your front end is independent of any complex backend system, but also communicates with them using API when the need arises. And thanks to Netlify functions, this process couldn't get any simpler to implement. Moving on to the next one. The next principle is pre-rendering, right? So before deployment, your entire front end is pre-built into highly optimized pages and assets. As a result of that, the content for your sites are generated at build time, then deployed to a CDN, which then serves all the pages to your users. This makes for an incredibly fast page load speed and an overall better experience, if you ask me. And the last principle that I will talk about is pulling in data as it is needed, right? The global front end uses JavaScript and APIs to talk to backend services, right? Which is how it was designed to function. And this allows pages to be enhanced and personalized as it is needed. So as a result of that, you get all the benefits of serving static assets to your users, but then you get the added power of adding highly dynamic experiences to your site when the need arises as well. So I think it's the better of both sides of the coin, if you ask me. But let's look at the benefits, right? We've been talking about the JAMstack. What does it bring to the table? The first is performance, right? If you notice, page loading speed has a great impact on user experience and on the conversion rate of your site. So when you're working with the JAMstack, you don't generate page views on the server at request time, but instead you generate pages at build time. Then the pages will be deployed directly to a CDN, which is closest to the user, meaning meaning they get to see the content even before they get to the page. Now, as a result of that, we can achieve very high performance on the web without introducing any kind of expensive or complex infrastructure. The next one is scale, right? Popular architectures deal with heavy traffic by adding more logic to cache more popular views and resources, right? But that kind of like is available on the JAMstack by default, right? Sites can be served entirely from a CDN, and that takes away any need for any complex logic or workflow to determine what assets can be cached and when it should be cached. So with the JAMstack, everything can be cached in a CDN. And as a result of that, you get things like simpler deployment and incredible load capacity all out of the box. So security is also something that gets better and easier to manage on the JAMstack. So if you compare it with traditional infrastructures, you'll see that you have fewer systems to protect on the JAMstack, right? More so, sorry, JAMstack pages and assets are all pre-generated. Serving pre-generated files allows for read-only hosting, which also reduces your exposure to attack vectors even further. Since the JAMstack leverages other tools and technologies to extend its capabilities, you can also rely on the security of those tools and services that has teams who are dedicated to securing their specific systems and also providing high levels of service. Strapi, for instance, when working with Strapi, I don't have to do any kind of security on my end as the developer building the product because Strapi has a lot of security features already in place for you to just leverage and build your tool, which is amazing. And let's talk about the developer experience on the JAMstack. It's safe to say that when you're building on the JAMstack, you would not need to learn any kind of proprietary technology or any technology that is so new that no one has heard of it yet just to get things done, right? Instead, the JAMstack relies on widely available tools and conventions that you're already familiar with, that you already know, and that makes it easy to find developers who have the right skills to build out your product. I guess what I'm saying is that building on the JAMstack can take you from feeling like this anytime you're working with your code or you're trying to get things done, and usher you into a whole new world of feeling like this guy who is just cool and having fun. All right, let's talk about some common misconceptions about the JAMstack, because there are some. And the first one is that JAMstack is for static sites. Something that the JAMstack don't rely, something that since the JAMstack don't rely on traditional server architectures, they come at the cost of powerful dynamic experiences, and that is not true. Right? People can think this way if they only believe the JAMstack to simply mean deploy static files to the CDN and serve it to the browsers, like this. But that's not the whole story, right? JAMstack has evolved beyond that, as we'll see in the next slides. The reality is that you can achieve truly dynamic experiences on the JAMstack, right? JAMstack sites are great for creating highly dynamic interactions because they use tools like serverless functions and a variety of third-party services. With serverless functions, for instance, we can perform operations like reaching out to external data sources like Strapi and getting content on demand. If you're also using Cloudinary, you get services like Cloudinary to perform asset transformations in real time. And these are all highly dynamic functionalities that comes to the JAMstack. And there's so much more. And the next thing that we've heard a lot is that JAMstack is not enterprise ready. Well, first of all, that is just a whisper. And this is usually how I respond to whispers. Anyway, some believe the JAMstack to be suited only for small sites like blogs and portfolio sites and so on and so forth. But once again, the JAMstack is currently capable of powering big enterprises, as it is already doing with these ones. Now, these are all enterprises that are currently running on the JAMstack in different ways and in different capacities. I won't get into all of them individually, but I will probably share a link where you can find out more information about these enterprises and how they are using the JAMstack. So the next thing I want to do is take a look at practical implementation of dynamic functionalities on an actual JAMstack site. So let's talk about JAMstack Explorers. The JAMstack Explorers platform is a free platform where you can go on and learn how to build on the JAMstack with a myriad of technologies. At the moment, we have missions on building with Strapi, building with Sanity, building with Nox, Next.js, and so on and so forth. So to build the site, we needed a CMS to store the missions data. So this includes videos, stages, instructors, what missions we are sending out, and so on and so forth. We also needed a custom database to store the mission progress for users and also to monitor activity on the platform. We needed video manipulation capabilities because we wanted to transform the videos on the fly and render it on our desired formats to the users. Finally, we needed a way to authenticate users and manage access. These are all functionalities that would ordinarily not be achievable in a said static site, but we did achieve it. So what did we do? I'll walk you through it. For our content management and storage needs, we went with a headless CMS. Thanks to teams like Strapi, this step was a breeze, right? The missions data included videos of different stages, instructors, video assets, and so on. And using a headless CMS made modeling the content as simple as possible, and it saved us a lot of time. So for our database needs, we wanted to track user activities on the platform as they progressed through the missions, right? We were tracking things like what stages of the mission have the users completed, what percentage of each video has been watched, and all of that. And we needed a custom database to store all that information and to also use it in different parts of the application as we needed to. So Hasura was great for this. We set it all up without ever having to step too far away from our core front-end skills. And the next thing was video manipulation, which we did with Cloudinary. So for every mission, we needed to automatically generate title cards for those missions. We needed to automatically insert bumper videos at the beginning and at the end of every video we had in a mission. And finally, I think we also needed to automatically set video dimensions, right? Because we had videos coming in from different instructors who are probably recording the videos in different dimensions. So in order to enforce consistency on those videos, we had to automatically set the video dimensions on the fly. And that was a tricky one, but Cloudinary's URL-based APIs made it super approachable, and it helped us save us a lot of time as well. Because we wanted to leverage our existing user base, we needed a way to authenticate users through their Netlify accounts. We used Netlify functions to liaise with our internal OAuth APIs, and it handled it efficiently just with a few environment variables. Again, these are all highly dynamic operations that we handled well within our JAMstack workflow without any problems. So we talked about functions a little bit. So let's take a closer look at how we use Netlify functions on this platform. In the first and existing version of this platform, we used Netlify functions to communicate with Hasura for the activity records that we talked about. Secondly, we used it to communicate with Cloudinary for the video manipulations. And lastly, we used it to communicate with our OAuth APIs for user authentication. But that is not all. We are currently working on the second version of this platform, and we are doing a lot of things with Netlify functions as well. And one of those is communicating with Hasura events for user achievements, because we want to reward users for their achievements, right? So when you finish watching a mission, you get an achievement, and we want to store it somewhere, and we want to do something when you get an achievement, and we're using Netlify functions to communicate with Hasura events for that. Secondly, we will communicate with Hasura webhooks for rewarding and also for monitoring. And lastly, we are communicating with Shopify because we want to generate discount codes on Shopify for each user that has achieved a certain achievement. No pun intended. So what we did to get all of this done is we created a real-time user dashboard. right? That updates in real time. We created custom databases that you can access with both GraphQL and REST APIs. We used a content management system like Strapi. We did on-the-fly video manipulation with Cloudinary, and we did user authentication. Once again, these things are not supposed to be possible on the JAMstack, but we are doing it, and the site is live where you can find out all the details about these things that I'm talking about. What we didn't do though is worry about Kubernetes and containers and servers. We remained just front-end engineers, and we didn't have to deal with any of those things that we are not by default comfortable with. We didn't hire a back-end engineer for this as well. So we were just a team of front-end engineers, and we got all of this done well within our skill set. We didn't also go outside our current skill set, right? Everything was JavaScript based. So it needed a little bit of figuring out every now and then, but we didn't have to learn C#, for instance, to get these things done. Another thing we didn't do is pay thousands of dollars for this, right? Every service that we've used up until this point has been free, and the platform has been running for like a year, right? So it saves you cost as well, just building on the JAMstack and leveraging all these other services that helps bring your ideas to life. And the last thing that we did not do is ship this product in 2 years, right? It took us a couple of months, and before you knew it, it was live and everyone was using it. Ordinarily, I would not want to make a calculated guess of how long this would have taken if you went a different direction, but this was relatively fast. So let's talk about my takeaways for you all in this session. And the first thing I want you to take away is, actually, if you can only take away one thing from this session, let it be that JAMstack is not only just capable of powering static sites, but it can power highly dynamic experiences. And not just that, but it also saves you cost. It keeps you comfortable within your strengths. It helps you ship faster, and also gives you a great working experience while you're building on the JAMstack. Okay, let's look at the takeaways that I have for us today. The first one is that JAMstack is not static, right? It is important to understand that JAMstack can still power highly dynamic functionalities. A good example of that is the JAMstack Explorer platform that we just looked at its implementation. Leveraging third-party tools and services, we were able to build a completely dynamic JAMstack application just with a handful of serverless functions. And I think you should be able to take that home from this session, that let's not think about JAMstack as just static sites, right? At the moment, a JAMstack is completely capable of powering highly dynamic functionalities. And the second one is that JAMstack is currently ready for enterprise usage, right? JAMstack is capable of handling very large sites and enterprise applications. And this is many thanks to creative solutions that are continuously arising from the community, mostly about build time optimizations and intelligent caching strategies that we are deploying to handle large JAMstack sites better. And that has made it possible for enterprises to run on the JAMstack with little to zero hassle. Migration policies are easy. At the moment, if you are a JAMstack, or if you're an enterprise or looking to get onto the JAMstack, there's a ton of resources that is there available to help you during the migration process and to show you the different strategies that you can employ to make the migration a success. The next one is that the JAMstack has a very mature ecosystem, right? At the moment, the reach of the JAMstack ecosystem is literally on the roof, right? There's a ton of tools and technologies that support the JAMstack model out of the box. And that is including, but not limited to, static site generators like Hugo, Gatsby, Noxt, Next.js, and so on and so on. We also have a very strong community of headless CMS providers like Strapi and a host of others who are all continuously making progress and continuously improving their services to ensure that your experience on the JAMstack is flawless. The next takeaway is that JAMstack is currently being used by millions of developers, right? I think last year we celebrated 1 million developers building on the JAMstack. And that number is much bigger now with the addition of teams and enterprises adopting the JAMstack daily. This, I think, provides some level of confidence, knowing that you're not alone should you run into problems along the way when you're building with the JAMstack. Like, once again, there's a whole ecosystem of JAMstack developers out there creating content, pushing out resources. The framework authors are continuously improving their documentation. So it's not something that you would get into and you'd be scared that you're alone or that you might have questions that no one will have an answer to. That wouldn't be the case on the JAMstack. And the next thing is that the JAMstack will continue to evolve, right? I think at the moment we are looking at the JAMstack as the future of modern web development. And if that is the case, it will continue to improve, it will continue to evolve, things will continue to get better, and that is to be expected, right? Because at this time, we don't think that there will come a time where the JAMstack will be stuck at a point or will not continuously make progress. So if you think that the services that the JAMstack offers you today or the features you get on the JAMstack is really cool, imagine what it's going to be in the next 2 or 3 years. That is something that kind of personally makes me happy and look forward to the things that will come on the JAMstack. So some other things that I don't think gets appreciated enough is the ease of staying within the confines of your core skills just to build a full stack application while working on the JAMstack. In my example, we were just a team of front-end engineers with little back-end experience, but we were still able to build out the JAMstack Explorer platform and get it out of the way in a matter of months. And that is really cool. Like, I think that's powerful because personally, I just want to be a front-end engineer, right? Things like Docker containers, Kubernetes, configuring web servers, how does load balancers work? I personally don't want to have to deal with any of those things, right? And JAMstack makes that possible for me to just write front-end code and everything else is handled for me out of the box. And I think that's ease and that flawless experience that lets you just be who you are is not appreciated enough. So I wanted to call it out again as one of our takeaways for today. And what about the concept of atomic and immutable deploys? So imagine that you have pushed a faulty code to production and something broke and everything is in chaos, right? You have thousands of users all over the world who are trying to access your site and things are just breaking. If you're on the JAMstack, if you're building on the JAMstack, what that means is that you can instantly roll back to the previous version of your site just by the click of a button. And that is possible because of the concept of immutable deploys, which means that your site is built and deployed to the CDN as a bundle and kept like that forever, basically. So if you push new versions of your site, they all get into the CDN, but they are there as different versions. So each deploy that builds and gets served to your users is kept in that state forever. And I think that is amazing because take, for instance, sometime in the future, you want to do some kind of throwback, right? I mean, we've seen companies doing this in recent times, talking about how they started, how far they've come, sending screenshots of their first website that they launched with and what it looks like at the moment, right? If you wanted to do something like that on the JAMstack, you can literally deploy your site's version from 2 years ago and it will still be live as of today, right? And you can possibly take those screenshots and deploy the new version and take more screenshots. And that is something that I think is priceless, to be able to have that capability to do things and have access to different versions of your site at any time, at any time in your life cycle is amazing. So these and many more other amazing features are the reasons why we are continuing to evolve the JAMstack model, just to ensure that developing world-class applications and developers out there doing their best have access to modern tools and technologies to get these things done. So let's look at a few ways to get the best out of the JAMstack, right? These ones are really interesting to me because I love to call it out. You might have heard about the JAMstack or building with the JAMstack for a while, but you might not have been making the maximum use of some of the features it offers, which is why I want to call these out because I find them really interesting. I use them almost in all my JAMstack applications. The first one is for you to use build hooks to monitor events, right? Events like content changes. So take for instance that I'm building an application with Strapi, and I'm connecting into a Nuxt front end, and I'm managing content in Strapi. So basically, what build hooks helps you do is create some kind of event monitoring on Strapi that will tell your Netlify site that some content has changed. So if I change a content and save it and publish it on Strapi, Netlify will get notified of those changes, and you can respond to those events however you want. Right? You could say if the content changes, rebuild my site, or if the content changes, redeploy a new version of the site with that has the current changes that has been deployed. So basically, you can respond to those events however you want, and it's an amazing feature that I don't think a lot of people are taking advantage of. But that is all available on the JAMstack, and you should know about it. So if you're using Netlify and any other CMS or a platform that supports webhooks, this should be available to you and you should be taking advantage of that. I think it's amazing. The next one is to use build plugins to perform actions like during your build process, like fetching more data or checking your code's accessibility compliance. And basically what build plugins do is they give you the ability to run custom JavaScript while your site is building, right? And they do this using build plugin events like on success, on error, on end, on start. These events basically just help you hook into your build process and perform other actions you want to do in that life cycle while your site is building. I think that's powerful, right? You have the ability to do really anything you want while your site is building, and that's the capabilities that the build plugin gives us. One of my favorite build plugins is the index one. I think it indexes all of your sites for SEO optimization while your site is still building, not even when it's deployed. And that is amazing. At the moment, there's a ton of build plugins that you can install in your application. There's the Algolia plugin that helps you with search optimization. There's a Gatsby plugin. There's a lot of them, and they do really amazing things. And the good thing is you can really even build your own plugin with a few lines of code. And that is also at the moment not being taken advantage of. I think a lot more people can do a lot more things with build plugins and just create innovative solutions that helps the entire community, not just your team or yourself in your projects. And that I think that's a powerful, and people are not using it enough, which is why I'm also calling it out. And the next one is background functions, right? Ordinarily, if you're working on the JAMstack or you're powering these communications between multiple services, we usually go with regular serverless functions. But once you want to perform an operation that takes a little bit of time, then you want to go with background functions, right? Say you're doing video transformations, asset optimizations, file uploads. You want to go and do that with background functions, which will keep running for a longer period of time that serverless functions would ordinarily not be able to run. Also, I don't think a lot of people are using background functions, and that is definitely something you should look at. The next thing I think you can do to get the best out of JAMstack is to put all of your site on Git, right? You can use GitHub, GitLab, whichever one you choose, but putting your site on a Git provider opens a whole new door of awesomeness, right? In terms of workflow and development experience, because you get features like branch deploys, automatic PR review links, reviews, and all of that. And that I think can be amazing because then you can deploy your site in multiple environments if you have access to branch deploys, which you have by default. So you can have branches like QA, development, staging, and production, and you can have multiple versions of your site in all these places just by having them in different branches, and taking advantage of branch deploys. That is amazing, and I also don't think a lot of people are using that. The last thing I think you can do to get the best out of your JAMstack site is if you're building a large JAMstack site that has thousands and thousands of pages. What I think is amazing is to spread it out into microsites with respect to their logical consents, right? For instance, if you had a site that had a product page that has a list of products that's coming from your CMS, or you have a blog section that's pulling in your articles from your CMS, or you also have a homepage that is purely static, right? What I think is it doesn't make sense for you to build all of that into one big bundle of site, because then the build times will be really high. So if you push a change into your docs page, for instance, then it's going to rebuild the entire site. It will rebuild the home page, it will rebuild the docs page, it will rebuild the products page, it will rebuild the blog section. Your entire site will have to rebuild for you to get the changes to preview. And that is where I think microsites can be really powerful. So if you build your doc site as a different site that is independent of your primary site, and build your blog section as an independent site, and build your product page as an independent microsite, you can use Netlify redirects and proxies to tie them back together into the primary site and just point to them individually. And that way, content changes to large sites will not affect the entire application. So basically now, if you update your docs, your homepage and your products page and your blog page won't have to rebuild. Just the docs page will rebuild. And that can significantly change your build times and give you much better development and deployment experience. So with that, I will say thank you for tuning into my session and hanging out with me while I go on and on and on about the JAMstack. Once again, if you'd like to keep in touch with me, I'm Kenny_IO on Twitter, and I will also be available in the chat section to answer a few questions if you have any. Thanks for having me, and goodbye.
Thank you, Ekene. These are wonderful insights. And I'm reminding everyone that if you want to ask our speakers questions, you can do that on Discord. You can also check out the sponsor booth and talk to other members of the conference.